The flickering fluorescent lights of Mike's 24/7 laundromat cast long shadows across the empty parking lot each night. Most people avoided doing laundry at such late hours in this small Tennessee town, but there she was, like clockwork, a young girl no more than 12 years old, dragging a heavy garbage bag through the door every single night at 11 p.m. Sarah Martinez, the night shift attendant, had noticed her routine over the past 3 weeks. The girl would quietly sort through what looked like school uniforms, carefully counting out quarters from a small plastic container. Her clothes were always neatly pressed despite being clearly worn and faded. What struck Sarah most was how the girl's eyes would dart nervously toward the door whenever it chimed, as if expecting someone she hoped wouldn't come. "Sugar, aren't you supposed to be home in bed?" Sarah had asked one night, unable to contain her concern any longer. The girl had simply shaken her head, mustering a polite smile before turning back to fold her clothes with practiced precision. Word about the mysterious nighttime visitor spread quickly through their tight-knit community. Some residents whispered about calling child services, while others suggested leaving her be. After all, she wasn't causing any trouble. But Sheriff James Cooper couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in his gut when his wife mentioned seeing the same girl walking home alone at midnight, carrying her freshly laundered clothes. "I've seen too many cases where we wished we'd acted sooner," Cooper told his deputy one evening, deciding to investigate personally. He chose a Tuesday night, parking his unmarked car across the street from the laundromat. Right on schedule, the girl appeared, this time wearing a Navy Junior ROTC uniform that seemed a size too big. What happened next would change not just the sheriff's life, but the entire community's perspective on what it means to be your brother's keeper. As Cooper followed the girl's trail home that night, the truth he uncovered about her nightly laundry routine would leave him sitting in his patrol car, wiping tears from his eyes before they had a chance to fall. The story of this young girl's determination and the circumstances that brought her to that laundromat every night would soon become a testament to both the hidden struggles many families face and the extraordinary lengths children will go to preserve their dignity. But more than that, it would remind everyone in our small town that sometimes the biggest acts of courage come in the smallest packages. What Sheriff Cooper discovered that night would not only change the course of this young girl's life but would spark a movement in our community that none of us could have predicted. As he sat there in his car, gathering his composure, he knew that what he was about to do next would require more than just law enforcement. It would require the heart of a father, the wisdom of a leader, and the compassion of an entire town. But before we reveal what drove this young girl to spend her nights alone at the laundromat, we need to understand the series of events that led to this moment, and the silent struggle that had been unfolding right under everyone's noses. Because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones happening in plain sight, waiting for someone to care enough to look closer. The story begins 3 months earlier, when Jasmine Williams started her first day at Cedar Grove Middle School. She stood out immediately, not because she wanted to, but because her pressed uniform and perfectly braided hair seemed almost too put together compared to her classmates' casual appearances. What her teachers didn't know was that every crease in that uniform represented hours of careful work, and every neat braid was done by her own hands in front of a cracked bathroom mirror. Life hadn't always been this way for Jasmine and her family. Just 6 months ago, they lived in a comfortable suburban home in Atlanta, where her mother worked as a successful physical therapist and her father managed a local restaurant. But life has a way of changing course when you least expect it. Her father's sudden illness had drained their savings, forced them to relocate to Tennessee for cheaper living, and left her mother juggling 3 part-time jobs just to keep a roof over their heads. Their new apartment was small, barely big enough for the 3 of them, but it was what they could afford. The catch? The building's ancient washing machine had broken down months ago, and the landlord showed no interest in fixing it. During the day, Jasmine's mother was barely home, racing between her jobs as a home health aide, grocery store cashier, and weekend cleaning service worker. The few hours she did have at home were spent caring for Jasmine's father, whose condition required constant attention. At school, Jasmine quickly earned a reputation for excellence, joining the junior ROTC program and maintaining straight A's despite her circumstances. Her teachers praised her dedication, unaware that she spent her lunch breaks studying in the library because she couldn't afford cafeteria meals. What they saw as academic commitment was actually Jasmine's way of staying warm during lunch period. The library was the only place she could count on for consistent heating. Sarah Martinez, the laundromat attendant, wasn't the first person to notice something unusual about Jasmine's nightly visits. 2 weeks earlier, Mrs. Thompson, Jasmine's English teacher, had spotted her walking home late one night. She'd almost stopped to offer her a ride but hesitated, unsure if it would embarrass the young girl. Instead, she mentioned it to Sheriff Cooper during their weekly church potluck, planting the first seed of concern in his mind. The sheriff's investigation revealed a pattern that touched his heart long before he understood its full meaning. Security cameras showed Jasmine arriving each night with remarkable consistency, always alone, always with the same determined expression. She would carefully sort her family's clothes, including what he recognized as medical scrubs and restaurant uniforms, her parents' work clothes. Between loads, she would pull out her homework, working diligently under the harsh fluorescent lights. But it was what happened between wash cycles that truly caught Cooper's attention. Jasmine would occasionally slip into the bathroom with her ROTC uniform, emerging wearing a different set of clothes. The realization hit him: she was washing and changing into her uniform at the laundromat because she needed it clean for the next day's inspection, and she couldn't risk wearing it home in the dark. As Cooper dug deeper into the family's story, he uncovered a web of circumstances that would challenge everything he thought he knew about poverty in his community. The truth behind Jasmine's nightly laundry routine wasn't just about clean clothes, it was about a young girl fighting to maintain her dignity, her family's reputation, and her dreams of a better future, all while carrying a burden that no child should have to bear. But the story that was about to unfold would prove that sometimes the darkest moments in our lives can lead to unexpected light, and that true community spirit often emerges in the most unlikely places. As Sheriff Cooper sat in his car that night, he wasn't just witnessing a child's struggle, he was about to become part of a chain of events that would remind everyone in Cedar Grove what it truly means to be a community. That night, as Sheriff Cooper followed Jasmine home from a safe distance, he witnessed something that would change his perspective forever. Instead of heading straight home, she stopped at the local hospital where her father was now receiving treatment. Through the lobby windows, he watched as she delivered a bag of freshly pressed hospital gowns to the night nurse, gowns she had quietly washed alongside her family's clothes, helping the overworked hospital staff who had shown kindness to her father. The pieces started falling into place. Jasmine wasn't just doing laundry, she was holding her entire family together with a quiet strength that belied her young age. During his investigation, Cooper discovered that she had been using her allowance money from her grandmother to buy laundry supplies, carefully rationing quarters and detergent to make them last as long as possible. Meanwhile, at Cedar Grove Middle School, the situation was becoming more complex. Mrs. Thompson had noticed Jasmine dozing off during morning classes, her usual sharp attention wavering. The ROTC instructor, Master Sergeant Rodriguez, praised her as one of his best cadets but expressed concern about her increasing exhaustion. "She's got the heart of a leader," he told the principal, "but something's wearing her down." Sarah Martinez, the laundromat attendant, had her own story to share. She revealed to Sheriff Cooper how she'd been secretly adding extra time to Jasmine's dryer cycles, knowing the girl counted every quarter. "Some nights, when it's particularly cold, I let her stay a bit longer," Sarah admitted, her voice thick with emotion. "She never asks for help, but I see her shivering sometimes when she thinks no one's looking." The truth about Jasmine's nightly routine began spreading through the town's grapevine, but not in the way you might expect. Instead of becoming gossip, it transformed into quiet acts of kindness. The local diner where Jasmine sometimes did her homework started leaving a plate of fries near her table, conveniently, unclaimed, by other customers. The librarian began keeping the library open an extra half hour, coincidentally during Jasmine's study periods. But it was what Sheriff Cooper discovered in Jasmine's school records that finally brought him to tears. Despite everything she was juggling, she had written an essay for her English class titled The Night Shift, a powerful piece about finding beauty in difficult circumstances. In it, she described how the hum of washing machines had become her lullaby, and how the laundromat's bright lights reminded her of the stars her father used to show her through their old telescope before he got sick. The situation, however, was reaching a critical point. Winter was approaching, and the nights were getting colder. Cooper knew that following protocol would mean involving child services, but his instincts told him this case needed a different approach. The Williams family wasn't neglecting their daughter, they were caught in a web of circumstances that could happen to anyone. As he sat in his patrol car that night, watching Jasmine make her way home with another load of clean laundry, Sheriff Cooper made a decision that would set in motion a chain of events no one in Cedar Grove could have anticipated. But before he could act on his plan, he needed to understand one final piece of the puzzle, a discovery that would reveal just how far a young girl would go to keep her family's dignity intact, and how a community could be transformed by the quiet courage of a child who refused to give up. The turning point came on a particularly cold November night, when the temperature dropped below freezing and rain turned to sleet. Sheriff Cooper had just finished his evening patrol when he received an urgent call from Sarah at the laundromat. Jasmine hadn't shown up at her usual time, breaking her perfect attendance for the first time in months. Something wasn't right. Cooper's instincts kicked in immediately. He knew Jasmine had an important ROTC ceremony the next morning. She would never miss doing her uniform unless something was seriously wrong. As he drove through the icy streets, checking her usual route, his mind raced through the possibilities. The weather report had warned about dangerous road conditions, and the sidewalks were treacherously slick. He found her halfway between the hospital and the laundromat, struggling with a bag of wet laundry that had grown impossibly heavy in the freezing rain. The washing machine at the hospital where her father stayed had broken down, and she had volunteered to help with the backlog of linens. She was shivering violently, her thin jacket offering little protection against the bitter cold, but her face showed the same determination he'd come to recognize. What happened next would shake the entire community to its core. As Cooper pulled over to help her, his dashcam recorded a scene that would soon circulate through every household in Cedar Grove. But it wasn't just what the camera captured, it was what happened off-camera that would leave even the toughest officers in his department fighting back tears. Meanwhile, at the Williams apartment, Jasmine's mother was facing her own crisis. Her third job had called with an emergency shift, but she couldn't leave her husband alone in his condition. She had been trying to reach Jasmine's phone, unaware that it had died in the cold. The weight of their circumstances was finally becoming too heavy to bear alone. Back at the laundromat, Sarah had already closed up for the night due to the weather, but she couldn't bring herself to leave. Something told her to stay, to keep the lights on just a little longer. She had no way of knowing that her decision would play a crucial role in what was about to unfold. Master Sergeant Rodriguez was also burning the midnight oil at school, preparing for the next day's ceremony. When he received a call from Sheriff Cooper, the conversation they had would set in motion a plan that would challenge every protocol in the book. But sometimes, doing the right thing means writing a new rulebook entirely. As news of the situation spread through the emergency response network, a remarkable scene began to unfold. Police cruisers quietly converged on the area, their lights off to avoid drawing attention. Local business owners who were part of the night watch started appearing on street corners, while members of the hospital staff gathered in the lobby, waiting. What none of them realized was that this night would become a defining moment not just for Jasmine and her family, but for the entire town of Cedar Grove. The truth that Sheriff Cooper was about to reveal would challenge everything they thought they knew about strength, dignity, and the true meaning of community. But before that revelation could come to light, one more piece of the puzzle had to fall into place, a discovery so unexpected that it would leave Sheriff Cooper sitting in his car, overcome with emotion, as he finally understood the full scope of what this young girl had been carrying on her shoulders all these months. What Sheriff Cooper discovered in his patrol car that night wasn't just Jasmine's story, it was a revelation that would shake their entire community. As he helped her load the wet laundry into his cruiser, a small notebook fell from her backpack. Inside, he found pages of carefully tracked expenses, lists of neighbors' names, and detailed schedules that told a story far bigger than anyone had imagined. Jasmine hadn't just been doing her family's laundry at Mike's 24/7 laundromat. She had quietly created a network of support for other struggling families in their apartment complex. The notebook revealed how she had been helping elderly neighbors with their laundry, washing uniforms for single parents who worked night shifts, and even cleaning blankets for the homeless shelter near the hospital where her father stayed. But it was the last page of the notebook that brought Sheriff Cooper to his knees. Jasmine had been saving every quarter she could spare, carefully documenting her progress toward a goal that seemed impossibly large for a 12-year-old, Dad's Special Treatment Fund, $2,473.50 saved, $7,526.50 to go. She had been putting aside money from recycling cans, doing odd jobs, and even selling her beloved collection of science books to contribute to her father's medical expenses. As this truth came to light, another situation was unfolding across town. Mrs. Thompson, unable to sleep that night, had made a startling discovery while grading papers. Jasmine's recent assignments all contained the same hidden message, a cry for help not for herself, but for the other struggling families she'd been quietly supporting. Each essay, every writing assignment, wove tales of community and hope, subtly highlighting the challenges faced by her neighbors without ever mentioning her own struggles. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the night shift staff had gathered in an impromptu meeting. They had finally pieced together why their supply of clean linens had mysteriously increased over the past months, even with their washing machine broken. The young girl they'd seen coming and going had been quietly helping them keep up with their laundry crisis, never asking for recognition or reward. Master Sergeant Rodriguez arrived at the scene just as his phone lit up with messages from other ROTC instructors across the district. They had been comparing notes about Jasmine's unusual request to learn advanced emergency medical response training. Now they understood, she had been preparing herself to better care for her father and anyone else who might need help in their community. Sarah Martinez, still waiting at the laundromat, received an unexpected visit from several of her regular customers. As they huddled together in the fluorescent light, stories began to emerge of small kindnesses, mysterious good deeds that had been happening throughout their neighborhood. All of them, they now realized, traced back to the quiet girl who spent her nights among the washing machines. But the biggest revelation was yet to come. Sheriff Cooper, reviewing the security footage from the past 3 months, noticed something that everyone had missed. Every night, after finishing her laundry duties, Jasmine would spend exactly 7 minutes standing in front of the laundromat's window, staring at her reflection. It wasn't until he enhanced the audio that he understood why. She was practicing her ROTC drill commands, perfecting her leadership skills while waiting for the final dry cycle to complete. As these pieces came together, a storm was brewing, not just the one that had brought freezing rain to Cedar Grove, but a storm of emotion and revelation that would force every person in town to confront their own assumptions about community, compassion, and the extraordinary capacity of a child's heart to carry the weight of others' needs. Yet even as these discoveries threatened to overwhelm him, Sheriff Cooper knew there was one more truth waiting to be revealed, a truth that would transform their understanding of strength, sacrifice, and the true meaning of family. Sheriff Cooper made his decision that night, but what happened next would surpass anything he or anyone else in Cedar Grove could have imagined. Standing in the rain, he made one phone call, not to Child Services as protocol might have dictated, but to Cedar Grove's Mayor Wilson. Within an hour, the mayor's office had become an impromptu command center for what would become known as Operation Midnight Angel. As Jasmine sat wrapped in a warm blanket in the laundromat office, completely unaware of what was unfolding, Sarah Martinez finally revealed her own secret. She wasn't just a laundromat attendant, she was a retired social worker who had recognized in Jasmine the same quiet determination she'd seen in countless children trying to hold their families together. She had been documenting everything, building a case not to separate the family, but to prove how essential they were to each other and their community. The next morning, as Jasmine prepared for her ROTC ceremony, she was met with a sight that would stay with her forever. The school gymnasium had been transformed overnight. Instead of the usual assembly, she found the entire community gathered together, the families she had helped, the hospital staff, her teachers, and hundreds of townspeople she had never met. But it was what waited behind the curtain that would bring tears to her eyes. Her father, wheeled in from the hospital for this special moment, sat proudly in his chair, wearing a freshly pressed suit. Beside him, her mother stood in a new dress, finally able to take a morning off from her multiple jobs. They were surrounded by stacks of laundry baskets, but these weren't filled with clothes. Each basket contained envelopes, letters, and cards from community members whose lives Jasmine had touched, often without them even knowing it was her. Mayor Wilson stepped forward to announce that Cedar Grove was establishing the Midnight Angel Foundation, a community fund inspired by Jasmine's actions. The foundation would provide laundry services and support for families facing medical hardships. The first grant: a new washing machine for every floor of Jasmine's apartment building, and a full scholarship for her future education. But the real surprise came from Master Sergeant Rodriguez. The ROTC program had created a new award in Jasmine's honor, the Silent Service Medal, celebrating cadets who demonstrate extraordinary community service without seeking recognition. As he pinned the first medal on her uniform, he revealed something that left the entire gymnasium in stunned silence. The hospital's broken washing machine. It hadn't actually broken down. The staff had discovered Jasmine's nighttime laundry routine and quietly created a way for her to earn money for her father's treatment while maintaining her dignity. Every load of hospital linen she washed had been added to a special account, one that now contained enough to cover her father's remaining medical bills. Through tears, Sheriff Cooper finally shared what he had discovered in his investigation. Dozens of small businesses had been watching over Jasmine during her late-night laundry runs. Security guards, night shift workers, and patrol officers had created an invisible network of protection around her, each one inspired by her unwavering dedication to her family and community. As the ceremony concluded, Jasmine stepped up to the microphone. Her voice, clear and strong, carried through the gymnasium as she shared the real reason behind her nightly routine. The laundromat wasn't just about clean clothes, she explained. It was the one place where I could feel like I was making a difference, where the problems in our lives could be sorted out, washed clean, and folded neatly away. Every quarter, every soap pod, every warm dryer sheet was a reminder that no matter how dark the night got, morning would always come. That day marked a new beginning for Cedar Grove, but perhaps the most remarkable change was the one no one saw coming. The laundromat, once a silent witness to a young girl's determination, became the heart of their community, a place where people didn't just wash their clothes, but washed away their prejudices, dried their neighbors' tears, and folded away their differences, one load at a time. The story of the Midnight Angel of Cedar Grove didn't end there. It was just the beginning of a movement that would spread far beyond their small town, reminding everyone that sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest acts of kindness, and that true community is built one quiet revolution at a time. 1 year later, Mike's 24/7 laundromat looks very different. The once quiet nighttime haven has transformed into a bustling community center. The walls, now painted in warm colors, feature photographs documenting Jasmine's story in the changes it inspired. A small plaque near the entrance reads, "Every load of laundry tells a story. What's yours?" Jasmine's father has made remarkable progress in his recovery, thanks to the specialized treatment the community helped secure. He often visits the laundromat during the day, sitting in a comfortable chair by the window, offering encouragement to others facing similar struggles. Her mother still works hard, but now manages just one job, as the director of the Midnight Angel Foundation, helping other families navigate difficult times with dignity and support. The foundation has expanded beyond Cedar Grove, launching similar programs in neighboring towns. They've installed washing machines in schools, created emergency laundry service programs, and established a network of support for families facing medical crises. Each new initiative carries the spirit of that quiet determination that started with one young girl's midnight routine. Sarah Martinez didn't retire after all. Instead, she transformed her role, turning the laundromat into a place where social workers regularly connect with community members who might need help but are hesitant to ask for it. Sometimes the simple act of doing laundry together breaks down walls that no amount of official intervention could, she often says. Master Sergeant Rodriguez reports that applications for the ROTC program have doubled, with many students citing Jasmine's story as their inspiration. The Silent Service Medal has become one of the most coveted honors in the program, celebrating those who lead by quiet example. Jasmine, now a sophomore, mentors younger cadets, teaching them that true leadership often means serving others when no one is watching. Sheriff Cooper still patrols the night shift, but his rounds now include regular stops at laundromats throughout the county. He's implemented a new training program for his officers, teaching them to look beyond the surface of what they see on patrol. Sometimes what looks like a problem to solve is actually a hero in the making, he tells each new class of recruits, sharing Jasmine's story as a reminder to lead with compassion. The apartment complex where the Williams family lives has become a model for community support. Those new washing machines turned their building into a gathering place where neighbors now know each other by name, share resources, and look out for one another's children. The spirit of mutual aid that Jasmine quietly cultivated has blossomed into a sustainable network of care. But perhaps the most meaningful change can be seen in the small moments that unfold at Mike's each night. New faces appear regularly, drawn by the warmth and acceptance they've heard about. They come with their laundry and their burdens, often leaving with both loads lightened. The quarter jar that Jasmine started now sits prominently on the counter, continuously filled by anonymous donors and used by anyone in need. As for Jasmine herself, she still visits the laundromat at night sometimes, not out of necessity, but choice. She does her homework there, mentors other students, and continues to help elderly neighbors with their laundry. This place reminds me that every challenge in life is like a stubborn stain, she says. With the right care, support, and patience, even the toughest spots can come clean. The story of the Midnight Angel of Cedar Grove didn't just change one family or one town, it sparked a conversation about community, dignity, and the quiet heroes who walk among us. It reminds us that sometimes the most powerful acts of kindness happen in the most ordinary places, and that true community is built one load of laundry, one helping hand, one act of understanding at a time. And so, the next time you pass a laundromat late at night and see the lights still burning, remember this story. Remember that behind every washing machine might be someone like Jasmine, someone whose determination to keep their world clean and dignified might just inspire a revolution of kindness that changes everything. Because in the end, this isn't just a story about a girl doing laundry at midnight. It's a reminder that hope, like clean clothes, is something everyone deserves. And sometimes, the simple act of helping someone carry their load can transform not just their life, but an entire community.